It's generally not a good practice to be looking at what your competitors are doing on Etsy, but I mean, come on, we all do it. The main thing you might notice when you do this is that some of your competitors might have lower prices than you. Before you freak out and start changing prices, let's talk about why this is, why their prices may be lower, and what you should or shouldn't do about it. So of course, you're allowed to look at your competitors' listings on Etsy, like they're not exactly a secret. And there are some situations where you actually should look at them. One example I usually give is to check your keywords if you're not sure about them. So if your listing is not doing well, you can go look at the search results for that keyword and see what kind of stuff comes up. You know, if your stuff doesn't really fit in with what comes up in that search, that might not be a good keyword. Just don't make it a regular thing, because if you start comparing yourself, that's not good. After a little snooping session, you may be inclined to believe that your products aren't selling as well as your competition for the simple fact that their prices are lower than yours. That is absolutely false, and this is not true of any other industry. So stay with me for a minute, I have an analogy. Pretend you're at the grocery store and you need a dipping sauce. There are lots of options for different sauces to dip. You have ketchup, mustard, honey mustard, ranch, whatever else, but you decide on ketchup. There are many factors that go into which bottle of ketchup you decide to buy. Of course, if you have a tight budget, you might want to go with the one that has the lowest sticker price. But other brands come in different sizes of bottles, so they may have a lower price per ounce even though the sticker price is higher. And the generic brand of ketchup doesn't usually have that low mess cap, you know what I'm talking about? So if we use that logic from earlier that you're not selling as much because your prices are higher than the competition. So this is kind of the same thing as with your items on Etsy, right? Heinz is not going out of business because people are only buying the generic brand. Heinz isn't going out of business at all. If we take that thinking of people are not buying my products because my prices are too high in comparison to my competitors and apply that to the ketchup, are people only buying store brand of ketchup? Of course not. It may be the cheapest, but it is certainly not the best. So why is the generic store brand of ketchup cheaper than brands like Heinz? Lower costs and lower margins, or lower margins. So here's what that means in terms of your Etsy shop and your competitors. When you have a smaller sales volume, you're not able to buy materials in bulk or wholesale. Buying in bulk typically means getting things cheaper the more you buy, cheaper per item. And small or new sellers cannot afford to be meeting these minimum order quantities for something in bulk or wholesale, so they will just go to their local craft store or order online for full retail price, which makes sense because going from our ketchup analogy to a candle shop analogy, okay, stay with me, you don't want to be buying thousands of candle jars if you only sell 1 or 2 candles a week. So if it costs you $3 per jar at your local craft store, but your competitor can buy 1,000 for 25 cents each from the manufacturer, of course their price can be lower, but the quality of those materials may be lower as well. So I'm not saying this is necessarily the quantity, it could also be the quality. Or maybe your competitors aren't like making thousands of sales, or their profit margin may be very low. From what I've seen and what I know things to cost and what Etsy fees are and how much it costs to ship things with free shipping, I really don't know how some of y'all are making any money. They may be purposefully lowering their profit margin to get more sales volume, or they may just not know what they're doing either. Whatever the reason is that your competitors' prices are lower, if they buy cheaper materials, if they take less of a margin, or simply don't know that they're losing money, that is their problem, not yours. So if you do take a look around your Etsy competition and you realize that your prices are a bit off from everybody else's, I wouldn't worry about it. It's not that big of a deal. As long as you're aware of your material costs, your overhead costs, and your profit margins, then you're fine. Well, it's not that simple, but you know. But if you're looking around and it is a stark difference, like you're charging $50 for something that everybody else is charging $5 for, you might want to take a look at why But also keep in mind, if you are browsing around Etsy, that if you have different variations on a listing, it will show the cheapest one first. And just as an example, I shop for fabric on Etsy sometimes, and if the seller offers a sample swatch of that fabric, it may only be $1 to $3, but the fabric could be like $20 or $30 a yard. So it will show $1 to $3 instead of the $20 or whatever it is. And of course, I'm not saying to never change your prices, okay? So you should review and update them occasionally, I typically say, and try to do myself twice a year. Just don't do it willy-nilly because so-and-so charges less. Your pricing and theirs, but again, that's not your problem. It should be an equation based on your material costs, your overhead, your labor, whatever else goes into it, and not just a stab in the dark, I think I can charge this much. Let us know in the comments if this has happened to you and what you did about it. Did you leave your prices alone? Did you try to adjust them and realize it wasn't right? Whatever the case is, let us know, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.